Bledsoe was arrested.
Patrick Montgomery was in court.
Jonathan Manapa will stay in federal custody.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So 39-year-old Missouri resident Christopher Rowe was seen on Capitol grounds with a metal-tipped pitchfork. He had a large knife, he had zip ties, and duct tape with him because, you know, tourists, Capitol tourists. He made his way to the front of the police line, and he was trying to pull a barricade away from the police. So officers intervened, and Rowe ended up falling, and he dropped his pitchfork. So while he was getting back up and picking up his pitchfork, another man started attacking an officer. Well, when Rowe got back on his feet, he jumped in to help with this attack. Rowe was seen wrapping his arm around the officer's arm, and then when he released the officer's arm, he shoved the officer with one hand. So another officer sprayed Rowe with chemicals. At that point, he dropped his pitchfork again. He retreated into the crowd. Well, by the time Rowe changed his clothes and recovered from this chemical, the mob had broken through the police line. So he followed everyone to the Upper West Terrace, and the Capitol had already been breached. But before Rowe entered, he was seen searching through a pile of metal scaffolding pieces, and he was seen briefly picking up a collapsed ladder. Now, he was seen entering the Capitol a short time after that, and he was not carrying the ladder, so he must have just put it back down. But, you know, they were thinking he was picking it up to maybe use it as a weapon since he lost his pitchfork. But anyway, he made his way through various parts of the building. He ended up among a very large group that was trying to gain access to the House chamber. So the group started to disperse, and the police started to aggressively remove everyone from the area after Ashley Babbitt was shot. And as the police were ushering Rowe and the others towards the exit, Rowe grabbed onto the magnetometer so he wouldn't be pushed outside. So Rowe turned around to the officer, or one of the officers, I should say, who had pushed him toward the exit, and he yelled, quote, Where? Are you going to fucking shoot me too? You guys are fucking a disgrace, a fucking disgrace. You are protecting traitors and treasonous. They committed treason, and you shot one of us. That's bullshit. Put your baton down and fucking join us. So at the same time, other members of the mob started assaulting officers, and the officer that Rowe had been yelling at, he turned around to try to help. So while that officer was distracted, Rowe charged at him. He wrapped his arm around that officer's baton, and then Rowe and some of the others were pushing that officer back. They pushed him back several feet. So the officers, all of them collectively started moving the mob toward the exit again, and Rowe continued to resist. But eventually they forced him out. They forced him and a bunch of the other people out of the building. But Rowe still didn't just go away. He stood between the door and the door frame, and he was refusing to move. So the police couldn't close the doors and lock them, even though they had everybody out. So Rowe then kicked one of the doors, and he moved away after being sprayed with chemicals. That was the only reason he left. He still didn't leave the Capitol grounds, though. He illegally entered the Capitol a second time. So according to the prosecutor, there was a group that violently overran the police, and they breached the doors that lead to the Capitol Rotunda. So Rowe was seen over there. He entered the rotunda as before, and then the police started to corral everyone, and they started moving everyone toward the exit. So once again, he was resisting the police. He held out his arms really wide. He grabbed onto a set of interior doors inside the building, and, you know, of course, to try to keep them from removing him. And then when an officer pushed Rowe to try to move him forward, Rowe shoved his shoulder into the officer. And then he continued to struggle with several officers, but, you know, was once again, police were successful. So they got him out of the building, second time. You'd think at that point he would leave. No, he did not. He moved to another Capitol entrance. He took a metal bike rack, which the police had been using as barricades, and he slammed it against the doors about 10 times. So this time, the police opened the door, the interior door where they were behind, and they deployed a fire extinguisher into the area. And so then Roe and everybody else moved away. So he finally gave up. So he was arrested on July 18th of 2023, and he was charged with assaulting officers, civil disorder, destruction of government property, entering a restricted building or grounds, 2 counts of disorderly conduct, 2 counts of physical violence, and parading or demonstrating in the Capitol. So when the police arrested Roe, they searched his home and they found a bunch of different weapons, including an AR-15 style rifle. They also found loaded clips, they found magazines, they found several boxes of ammunition. And why this is important is because the government says he isn't allowed to have weapons. Roe is a convicted felon. Now, Roe is trying to sell the idea that in that state, he has a right to own a firearm because his rights were automatically reinstated when he completed his probation. I looked at several law firms' websites about this, and that's not what they say. What I've read, unless this is something brand new, unless your conviction has been expunged from your record, if you are a convicted felon, then you are permanently banned from owning a firearm in Missouri. And Roe has a very lengthy criminal history. There is no mention of this felony being expunged. In 2003, Roe was convicted and sentenced to 6 months in jail for destruction of property. In 2005, he was convicted of driving under the influence. The following year, Roe was sentenced to another 15 months in jail for setting his mother's car on fire because he was trying to defraud their insurance company. Roe escaped from detention during his sentence for that case, so then the judge gave him an additional 5 months. Then in 2012, Roe was convicted of theft and he was ordered to pay a fine. In 2014, he was convicted of another DUI and he was sentenced to 1 year in jail that time. And then in 2021, Roe was arrested for trespassing at a post office because he refused to comply with their mask mandate. So yeah, he is a quintessential MAGA man. So in November of 2023, Roe pleaded guilty to 3 counts of assaulting officers at the Capitol. And based on just one of those counts, he was facing up to 8 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and $250,000 in fines. And this time, the prosecutor requested a decent sentence. They asked for 71 months in prison, 3 years of probation, and $2,000 in restitution. But Roe's defense attorney argued that he should be receiving some leniency because this is a new one. The attorney said his client is a member of a cult. Roe's defense attorney basically said, yeah, my client, Roe, is a cult member. He asked the judge to read and consider 2 different papers in making her determination. One was titled Cult Members and the Insanity Plea. The other one is called Seeking Evidence of the MAGA Cult and Trump Derangement Syndrome. So U.S. District Judge Colleen Kolar-Cotelli presided over Roe's case, and I don't know if she read them or not, but she gave the prosecutors almost everything they asked for. Roe was sentenced to 70 months in prison, 2 years of probation, and $2,000 in restitution. So was it worth it? Sadly, they say Roe has a special needs child at home. That's who's going to suffer. That's who will suffer for the next almost 6 years. All because Roe cared more about Donald Trump than he cared about his family that day. As I've said over and over again, if you claim that your family is your number one priority and you were in D.C. attacking the Capitol and police on January 6th, then no, your priorities are really screwed up. You care more about Donald Trump and you care more about partisanship and the ridiculous fairy tale of a stolen election. That is who I feel bad for, are the children in all of this. So anyway, I will let you know if I hear any more. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like this video, share it, become a subscriber if you have not. If you can donate, truly appreciate it. Helps to keep the show going. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.